um, start by saying a very big welcome once again, Nilima. This is such a pleasure and honor, and a great opportunity for us to learn. Um, and I know that there'll be a lot of insights that people will take away from this discussion and be able to apply in the work that many young folks are doing from different parts of the world on issues of environment, climate, climate justice and rights and equity. So thank you once again for making the time and for sharing your expertise with us, and a big warm welcome once again.
Thank you, Ash. It's an absolute pleasure and honor for me to be speaking to these amazing young people who are at the forefront of saving our planet. And there's no bigger agenda right now.
Thank you. You're absolutely right. This is one of the most important areas, and I think what we've learned is that this is something we can only do by coming together. And so this opportunity to be together with you here, and to be able to talk to you and exchange ideas and learn is truly precious in every sense of the word. And thank you once again. I thought I'd start by saying a big warm welcome to the POP Climate Leadership Conversations. This is marked as a tribute to our chief mentor, Dr. R.K. Pachauri. The project and initiative on the climate leadership conversations is intended to strengthen youth leadership and explore tactics that empower youth to take action and tackle the most pressing environmental challenges and issues that we face globally, like you pointed out, Nilima. We're thrilled to have you, Nilima, and to hear your thoughts and your perspective, especially as you lead a lot of leadership work through Shakti Leadership, and you've been training and coaching so many people around the world. It's truly a privilege to be able to have this time together with you. This series of conversations on leadership strategies is focused to create a space to reflect on and understand some of the recommendations you'll make, and also be able to absorb some of the examples and experiences that each of us have a chance to ponder on in the action that we undertake ourselves. Each of these conversations is focused on experiences and also is intended to translate to environmental issues and action. The initiative itself is designed to focus on, as I mentioned, as a tribute to Dr. R.K. Pachauri. He is our chief mentor a co-founder of the POP movement, where POP stands for Protect Our Planet. So with that, I'd like to say a warm welcome to you, Nilima, and we're very excited to hear your thoughts and perspective on the issue of conscious leadership and gender balance. I know that you'll share with us perhaps some further insights, as you and I just talked a little while ago, on the fact that the POP movement has a lot of young women in particular that are leading action in this field. So thank you once again, and we're delighted to have you with us. I'm going to pass on to Anna, who will get us started. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ash, and welcome, Nilima. I will now introduce you to everyone who's watching us today. Ms. Nilima Bhat is a visionary in the fields of personal mastery, leadership, gender equality, and well-being. Her extensive and pioneering work is encompassed in her two books, Shakti Leadership, Embracing Feminine and Masculine Power in Business, and Cancer is Me, The Journey from Illness to Wholeness. Ms. Bhat is currently focused on building the Shakti Fellowship, a global network of conscious women, leaders, and entrepreneurs who collaborate to create peace, prosperity, and beauty through the exchange of multiple forms of capital. Shakti leadership seeks to restore long-lost balance for all genders alike, reaching into ancient spiritual and mythical teachings. Shakti leadership promotes generative, cooperative, creative, and empathic leadership while leaving behind hierarchical, individualistic, militaristic leadership values on the basis that the current one-sided notion of a leader's power is the root cause of a host of contemporary problems. Thank you so much for joining us. And our first question will be asked by Dr. Ash Pachauri, Senior Mentor of the Pop Movement.
Thank you, Anna. And again, a warm welcome, Nilima. Just to get us started, we're interested to hear your perspective on what leadership is and what leadership means to you. Thank you.
That's the big question, isn't it? There must be so many definitions of leadership out there. Typically, if you look at the way we've understood leadership, it is this, there's this boss man who leads from the front and wins, right? And gets his team to win. There's some sort of a win-lose metaphor also there. And it's essentially about leadership from the front with all the power in that one person's hands. That typically has been. And this is the model that comes out of the military. And as we know, we need our military. And there are times this is a very necessary model. The question is that the only model, and does it have to apply across all situations? And the answer is no. Different situations need different leadership models. So when I was looking at what is, I'm part of the conscious capitalism movement, which is about creating more conscious companies that create a world that works for all, that elevates humanity through business. And I realized we need a leadership model that is a conscious leadership model. And so let's work backwards from what's the idea of conscious leadership. We all essentially need and want two things at the end of this whole thing called life. We're all looking for freedom and we're all looking for fulfillment. These are the twin goals of life. Okay. And the discovery I had in my years as a yoga teacher and practitioner and having put together this holistic model for healing through cancer is that you cannot lead anyone or anything until you can lead yourself. So to be a leader, you have to first be a self-leader. You have to lead yourself. So how do you lead yourself to freedom and fulfillment at a minimum? Forget others. Okay. You lead yourself to freedom by achieving self-mastery, and you lead yourself to fulfillment by doing what I call selfless service of something greater than yourself. So these, we say, to be a conscious leader, you need to have done these two things. You need to have achieved self-mastery, control over your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, your internal motivations, right? That level of self-mastery, as well as then make sure you're bringing all that power of self-mastery in service of something greater. So selfless service, make things better in some way. Now, I realize you can't get to self-mastery and selfless service if you don't do one next level of work. And this, in a way, is what defines Shakti leadership from many other models out there. So you get to self-mastery and selfless service if you become psychologically integrated, what we call psychologically wholeness, that you have access to both your healthy masculine qualities as a leader, and you have access to your healthy feminine qualities as a leader, regardless of gender. So to be a Shakti leader, you need to be conscious, self-mastery, selfless service, and you need to be integrated, masculine and feminine, mature qualities coming together. So once you have all this together, you're able to be congruent. You're able to truly discover what your purpose is, how do you live your life on purpose, and then get on with that. And then you're kind of congruent all the way from the core of who you are to the work you're doing in the world. So that is how I arrived at what leadership should be for me.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that, because I think it's so important also, as you rightly pointed out. I mean, this is conscious leadership, and to be conscious of conscious leadership is so important as we, set out to do whatever we do, and be, self-aware and also aware of, our own different dimensions and the dimensions around us. So I think this is extremely powerful, and thank you so much for getting us started with this very important thought. um, I know that there's a lot of very interesting dimensions that others are keen on exploring together with you, so I'm going to pass on to, I believe, Trisha, who goes
Yeah,
next. Please. Thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Ms. Nilima. It's great to have you today. My question is, Shakti leadership mentions that the current way of leading does not work. So, what are some examples of effective previous leadership strategies, and how can we go back to them? What is your take on that? Thank you.
Thanks, Drisha. And while there will be of course leadership strategies that have worked in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they were perfect or that they will work now, because the world today is in a very, very different place because of globalization, because of COVID, because of the climate crisis. These were things we didn't have to deal with in the past. Having said that, when you look at some well known leaders of the past and why do we revere them, the examples, of course, would be, there is a Gandhi from our own country of origin, right? That here was a leader who was able to get India to freedom without bringing on a military coup and bloodshed. Of course, it ended up, with the partition later, but just his approach of ahimsa, right? So here was a leader who came up with some sort of a new model that was really quite um, unique at that time of an age of colonization, and it brought an empire to its knees, right? So that is one example that was very, very different. Let's look at someone in the social sector, someone like a Mother Teresa. She's someone we are so respectful of, we admire so much. Here is a woman who comes from a religious background, very committed to her own path, but was able to be of service to a world beyond her religion. She did not see religion when she found the destitute of Calcutta, and she brought them in. And then she set up a mission that went all around the world and continues to do this incredible humanitarian work today. So here is another incredible example of what it means to be um, a leader who has practiced self mastery and selfless service, who is embodying both healthy masculine and healthy feminine behaviors. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think the two examples that you gave are more than enough to understand that self mastery is more important. And once you do that, you actually lead towards that path where you can, whatever you have learned, you are able to process and give it to others as well. So thank you so much for answering this question. And I would like to ask now Meda, I think, to go ahead and please ask your question. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
I don't know if it's going to come up in the next set of questions, but just to complete on, if you didn't understand how these two leaders exhibit mature masculine and feminine. So, in very simple terms, masculine is the quality, the ability to get a task done, okay, and feminine is the ability to have the relationship and take everyone in your team along with you, right? So both these leaders, regardless of their gender, really achieved very, very high standards for a world that didn't have that before. That is healthy masculine. And at the same time, they were extremely compassionate leaders who were taking their people along and who built these great networks, organizations, and communities around them. So that's the balance that I was talking about.
Yeah. Now I understand that what exact qualities you were pointing on by giving these two examples. Um, I think as leaders, as young leaders of the pop, these two qualities that you just mentioned, will keep that in mind when we move forward and work on other projects as well. Thank you so much. Summer, would you like to go next? Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm so honored to be part of this conversation. The question I have for you is a bit of a two-part question, and you somewhat touched on it, but I will ask. So my question is, what are some of the specific strategies for leaders to become more conscious and inclusive with their decisions? And how can we promote a shift to a leadership style that is more generative, cooperative, creative, and empathetic?
So I just build on what I've already started talking about. And I know your group has been learning with Patricia Claver on mindfulness and self-awareness techniques. So the good news and the bad news is that there is a way to become a conscious leader, but you can't just talk about it and read about it. You have to put in the hard work of practicing it. Okay, so it is a skill. And in the Shakti leadership model, we say the first element of the model is to become present. Presence is the master key. And presence is a muscle you can build. Presence is the ability to be centered, to not be in your head and be worrying about something, to not be in your outer heart and getting emotional and looking for self-validation, or having something to promote about yourself, please others, or to be in your gut and be defensive and be forever in this fight, flight, survival mode. So when we can step back from these three centers, the head, heart, and the gut, where typically we are when we are in our outer ego consciousness, when we can step back into our spine and hold that place of peace and stillness and witness what's going on around, then depending on a situation that arises, we get to respond rather than react. Okay? We get to respond in a way that we say you have to build the muscle to become the wise fool of tough love. So we have at a minimum 4 aspects of ourselves that are good leadership qualities that are needed. Okay, wise is access to our parent self, right? Fool is access to our child self, our ability to lighten up and laugh. And there are some times where that is the energy that is needed in the room, when everyone's being too serious. Okay, tough is the aspect of ourself that we call the inner masculine, which is the ability to draw boundaries, say no, fight the good fight. Okay. And love is the aspect of our inner feminine, which is the ability to love and include and have compassion and nurture yourself and others. So when you are present, and you have to put in the hard work of learning how to be present, the good news is there are techniques, there are tools. I'm happy to share with this group. I know Patricia is teaching you a whole bunch of wonderful things like the slider of consciousness. We have a presence practice freely available on our website and YouTube channel. If you just look for Shakti Leadership Presence Practice, you'll find a 10-minute practice, you'll find a shorter 5-minute practice. And essentially, if you do this every single day for 21 days, it's as if you are building the neural pathways and the muscle. You're practicing how to be present so that in a moment when challenge comes at you, you have that muscle to call on and to stand on, instead of getting hijacked by your negative emotions and thoughts, right? Once you practice how to be a more present leader and person, then you also learn how to develop your wisdom self, your child self, your curious, wondrous child self, your healthy masculine self, and your healthy feminine self. All these are behaviors. The good news is they can be practiced in order to be mastered.
Certainly, yes. Thank you so much for answering my question. All those points were very enlightening, and I agree, definitely respond rather than reacting. And to do that, you need to be centered and one with yourself and conscious. So thank you so much for answering my question. I really appreciate it.
one way to really put this to work, Summer, is the next time something triggers you in the moment. It's okay if you're going to get triggered and it goes badly. That's okay. But afterwards, reflect and say, what did I play for? First of all, was I present or not? And there's a good chance you were not. But even if you were present, what was the strategy that you applied? Were you coming from your tough self when you could have been more loving? Or were you being too loving when you needed to be tough? Or were you being too authoritative and directive and moralistic, almost like that parent voice in your head, when actually what that moment needed was for you to lighten up and relax and be able to laugh? That may have changed the energy in the situation and may have got you a very different outcome. So while it's hard for us to practice presence and be flexible with the wise fool of tough love, kind of the fourfold self, as it's called, in the moment it may be difficult, but certainly let's begin the journey to becoming more conscious leaders by always reflecting after a leadership moment has happened to you, and to say, what could I have done differently? And the interesting thing is, it's really only about these things. There's nothing more. It's either about were you present or were you absent? And it's either about which of these four selves did you have to use in that moment? That's it. That's it. Really, there is nothing beyond this for that leadership moment.
That's amazing. That's a really powerful thing, and I'm just wondering if I may just check. I mean, you directed us to this important tool, and of course the importance of practice, because I think like when we exercise, we're building a certain muscle in similar fashion. The practice, I'm sure, will help train us. And with every experience, perhaps with that reflection, one can gain. But I'm just wondering, is this kind of like what is the practice? Just to get an idea, I'm curious to look at it, and I will. But is it kind of like a meditation, or could you tell us a little bit more about the tool, please?
Yeah, the presence practice has been put together by my husband Vijay Bhat and his coach Hank Fieger, and then I built on it myself with my yoga tools and techniques. And it's really a power pill. In 10 minutes. It involves your body, making sure your body becomes still, then making sure your breath gets into a nice even rhythm, then getting into your mind and emptying it out and becoming like a clear crystal lake, and then opening your heart and being able to reveal and receive emotions from a place of resilience. And then also entering into your senses, your five senses, and becoming aware of what's happening in the room, picking up signals. That's what a leader needs to be able to do. And most of all, then be able to exude a kind of energy from your core towards everyone, where your presence is able to quieten and bring others into their presence. So these are like the 6 steps that happen along the way. The body, the breath, the mind, the heart, the senses, and the energetic induction. It's quite an experience.
Yeah. I think I just want to say thank you for sharing that, and to everybody who's listening, will listen. I'm just going to say that this is something that we all should practice, and I think in all fields it's important, but in our field it's particularly important. And we work with a range of different kinds of people in many different sets of circumstances and in contexts. And being able to strengthen one's ability to be able to tune in, actually have that opportunity and habit of reflecting and building that strength through practice is going to be crucial as we do what we're doing. So I'm just going to say to everyone, and we'll make sure we put that in text too on YouTube. But thank you so much. We'll get that link and put it in. But we encourage everybody to listen. So thank you very much for sharing.
I'm glad you're inspired by this. And there is like a key affirmation that is part of this presence practice. And I'm happy to share that now. It comes from the work of the Enneagram by Don Riso and Russ Hudson. It's super, super powerful. Basically, it says, the reality of this moment is that I have nothing to defend. So that relaxes your gut. The reality of this moment is that I have nothing to promote. So that relaxes your heart. The reality of this moment is that I have nothing to fear. So that gets you out of your head. Then you say the only reality of this moment is that I am here now. Okay. Now that you are here now in this present moment without distraction, the next set of affirmations is all I need is within me, which is a very powerful knowing, right? And then you say, all I need comes to me. Because you realize you're not in isolation. You're part of a grander scheme of energy and synchronicities that are always happening and possible if you're present. So all I need comes to me, and all I need flows through me. So you kind of have the ability to not be stuck and learn how to be more fluid with what's coming and what needs to move on and so on. Then the last set is I am enough, I have enough, and there is enough for all we can share. Now, these three affirmations speak directly to our scarcity consciousness, our poverty and our victim consciousness, which is typically a place we go to when we lose presence. So when you say, I am enough, that's a very powerful statement of self-affirmation. I don't need to be jealous of someone else. I am enough. And saying, I have enough. So again, we're always thinking, what more can I need? What more? Someone else has something that I need, right? So when you say, I have enough, it brings you to a place of self-sufficiency, which is a place of power. And then when you say, there is enough for all we can share, it kind of opens up this field of abundance and being okay. It takes away that clingy scarcity, poverty consciousness out of a situation and the fear out of the situation. Now you can be available to the moment. So these are some really, really, really powerful affirmations, very carefully chosen to be the antidote or the medicine for the very fears and limiting beliefs that come in our way.
Thank you. And, Summer, thank you for putting us on this path, because you sort of stimulated this discussion, which is so profound. And I think it's so incredible because, I think you started out with this whole thing about being bigger than oneself and serving. And unless we feel we're in a place where we are full, we're never going to be in a place where we're able to serve and or move beyond that point where we say we have enough and are now willing to give. And then you get past those feelings of, wanting more or being jealous or envious or whatever you want to call it. And so I think, it all links very, very neatly, and definitely gives us a lot to think about. And thank you.
Glad it helped.
Thank you very much. Anna, over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next question will be asked by Mira Hope. So Mira, if you want to go.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much, Summer, for the wonderful question, and Dr. Ash. And above all, thank you, Ms. Nilima, for that amazing answer. So my question is basically, what are some strategies to restore gender balance and promote a more equitable society that steers away from hierarchical, individualistic, and militaristic leadership? Yes.
First of all, I think we have to make it known that this is not about making men wrong. It's not about creating villains out there. The patriarchy, which has led to the inequality among genders, is something both men and women and all genders allowed to happen, right? Because we were all complicit. for thousands of years. It created a certain social structure that worked until it didn't anymore, right? So now as the feminine movement rises and the women's movement rises, it's important that we do not make men and all things masculine wrong or bad. I keep saying we have to end the battle of the sexes, and it's time for gender reconciliation. It's time for all of us to understand that it's really not about gender. We all need to become whole persons. Women need to claim their masculine nature in a healthy way. Men need to claim their feminine nature in a healthy way. And then each one has to find their unique combination of the Shiva, the Shakti, the yin, the yang, the complementarities that we are inside our psyche. We each have to find our unique combination to become the unique person we are. Because until we express that uniqueness that we are, the world is going to be incomplete. The world is incomplete until each one of us fully shows up expressing our unique gift. So I think this kind of a truth and reconciliation from the inside out approach for the gender conversation is the need of the hour. We have to recognize that when we lost the feminine because of the patriarchy, all things feminine and women were subjugated or suppressed. In the process, we ended up hurting not just the women, but also the men, because they remained incomplete as well. We are all psychologically incomplete if we do not develop both parts of ourselves, masculine and feminine, right? So we say, hurt people, right? That when you are incomplete, you're, it's almost as if you do not have your power with you. In order to come into your full power, you need to be a whole person. So when you do not have your power with you, you are very insecure. You're going to go out and try and steal it from somewhere else. So I actually believe the patriarchy has left a lot of trauma in each individual and collective psyche of communities and cultures and races. And the time has come to rise in love together. This is a campaign that we started some years ago for this healing of the genders. And typically this whole myth of romance saying, oh, you're incomplete until you find someone and then you fall in love. And I joke, it's not about falling in love and making yourself less in some way. How about rising in love and together? How can you help each other become their whole selves and not be dependent on each other to complete yourselves? So these are those strategies we need to have in place.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nilima. I actually do like the fact that you cited out at the beginning of answering the question, the idea of not making men look wrong. It is a society mishap. It just took me back to Hadman's theory about gender, whereby if you sum it all up, he brings out the aspect of people create invisible norms, perpetuating systems of gender balance. So that's the aspect that you brought in, whereby we are also having patriarchy being one of the major inhibitors to making us achieve that aspect of males adjusting to the masculine way of leadership, and also having the females accept that one point in time they'll have to accept the masculine way of leadership. So I'm really so grateful for your presentation, and I love the way you answered the question.
Thank you, Meta.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing, those were a couple of amazing questions and also amazing answers. I think we are all taking very, very valuable teachings from this very special session. So, and also I think it's sometimes it's hard to recognize the difference between these energies and how we both need to recognize both of them within ourselves. So I think it's really
And
important to talk about
Maida
it.
made a very good point about, she was drawing on the work and research of an expert. And there is also this thing called social dominance theory, which is along the similar lines, which says that it is human nature that the minute there is a group of people, it gets polarized into two groups at a minimum. And then one becomes the dominant group and the other one becomes the subordinate group. This is just human nature because there is duality and polarity everywhere. And what happens is, let's look at the age of slavery. You had the owners and the slaves. Look at the age of colonization. You had the colonizers and the colonized. And right through for thousands of years, you had the patriarchy where men have had power over the women, ostensibly because they are physically weaker. Now, while that helps to keep a structured society going, that there is a clear sense of who has the power and who's directing, it doesn't mean it is fair or it is equal, but sometimes it has worked to just make systems work more efficiently, the distribution of labor and so on, for example. Where the problem comes in is the social dominance theory has able to show that the dominant group turns on a certain dysfunctional psychology and behavior, which is it sees itself as the subject and it sees the subordinate group as an object, almost inanimate, to be exploited, to be mined, to be harvested. It does not see the second group as human anymore. And that is why more and more perpetration, atrocities are then taking place through that kind of a psychology. Incredible amount of inhuman behavior is done by the dominant group upon the subordinate group. And it's just human psychology, sadly, that we have to become aware of and catch ourselves and learn how to not let that take us over.
Thank you. That is, oh, go ahead, Mida. You may go ahead.
So thank you so much, Ms. Nilima. Actually, I just got to realize one thing. I think the whole aspect of gender imbalance comes with the way of upbringing in society and within our households. So you find that in some families, girls and boys are given equal responsibility. And then in other families, the girls are more of told to do the private tasks, while the boys are exposed to the public tasks. In this case, a girl is prepared for marriage, kitchen, probably the cleaning and all, and then the man or the boy is trained to become the leader, the heir. I'm giving it from the perspective of African setting. Probably the rest of our cultures also have it. So you find that unless it's addressed at household level, there is no way a girl will come out to society and easily advance or try to adjust to the way society is dealing with things. And at the end of it all, we miss the good leadership she would have presented. So I actually think you do have a point. Thank you.
Mida, you're right. The long-term solution is that it begins at home. It begins in the family. It begins with the kind of parenting a child is given. All those gender norms, what the child sees at home, how does the dad and mom share power or not? It all begins from there. Having said that, since many of us today are entering the public world and we have to show up as leaders, we have to do the hard work. And that's why we call it the heroic journey. We have to do the hard work of decolonizing our minds, deconditioning our minds out of the gender roles. We have to do that work, and we have to reclaim our sovereignty. And the good news is, it's always a bit of a cause and effect thing, that the more the context arises, like today we have the women's marches and we have the women rising movement, the more you start seeing that in the public, the more you're able to bring that into the home and also gently shine the mirror at what's going on in the home, right? So it's not only that the home it has to begin with the home. I call it the seed and the soil. This is the Chinese metaphor. For anything to truly happen, yes, the seed needs to be strong, but the soil has to be conducive for the seed to be able to grow in it. So your context is the seed, is the soil, and the person is the seed. So if your context is now giving you a lot of strength to say, you can call it out in your own home privately, and that you have to make that heroic, courageous journey to do so, to do it in a way, again, without making anyone wrong or bad. But how are you going to educate everyone and take everyone along? You know, it's deep and hard, but unavoidable work. The change will begin one person at a time, and that one is you.
Definitely. Thank you so much. That was very insightful. Before we go to some final words by the participants, I would like to ask Dr. Ash and Ms. Nilima if you have any conclusions, if you would like to do a round of conclusions before we go to final words.
I would just say it's been an utter delight. I can't believe how 43 minutes have flown and how much ground we have covered. You've really managed to extract the very core of Shakti leadership. And it's just been a joy. Thank you.
I
You
want to
are
say thank you so much. I mean, I just want to say that I'm still sort of soaking in and absorbing, and I know all of us are in the same boat. We're all kind of just soaking this in because it's so rich and it's so powerful and it's so inspirational. But I think the important thing is that we're taking away an essence of this that we need to integrate in our lives, in our day-to-day lives, because I think that's one of the key sort of lessons I've taken away. And I think this whole practice of being present, and I think you also flagged a really important thing, which is to rise in love together. This is one of the things that happens. And you're talking about social theories and behavioral theories, and the fact that typically we tend to formulate camps and it always sort of ends up that way. But there's ways in which we can come together and be stronger together and bring out more and better of each of ourselves in the process, and therefore complement each other and be stronger together, is a very, very important takeaway, among many others, that I think a movement that's headed in the direction of sort of empowering people, amplifying voices, and strengthening action is critical, really an important takeaway. And I'm going to again say some of the essence of Shakti leadership, being conscious, and understanding that we all have different dimensions. And I know you brought up an important point, which is that upbringing and cultural roots in the whole identification of gender roles, gender norms, is one that, yes, is a reality, but change will start here. And it's up to us. And I hope for everybody who's I know this is a conversation we have to play back at least a few times, because there's just so much and it's so rich. For us to be able to sort of internalize this, I think is key. So I'm going to really encourage everybody to do that. But I want to say that what you've shared with us is extremely important. And I think at the end of the day, the one other takeaway is that practice will help. And so if we can all sort of utilize the tool that I know you have out there already, and it's a 6-stage important tool which we can sort of bring into our lives and make a part of our own practice over 21 days and hopefully beyond, where we can start to affect change in our own lives. And I'm sure through that to many, many more. It is something that works as an inspiration, and to us, you're an inspiration. So I just want to say thank you, and I hope all of us will take away and radiate some of this goodness and this consciousness out to the world.
Ash, I'm sorry, I realize we have maybe just a minute, and there's one very important point which
Please,
wasn't part of this agenda, but let me take that minute. Is
please.
for you people more than any other group that I speak to,
Yes.
this understanding of the social dominance theory and the feminine, right? That we have, this is the work of Joanna Macy, who it's called the work that reconnects. It's the masculine, the hyper masculine that sees ourselves as the boss, the leader, the dominant, and sees the planet, the earth, the ecosystem, the ecology as subordinate to be mind. It's the object that we have to harvest and extract, right? And right there is the core and the start of our ecological crisis. And if we really want to heal our planet and protect our planet, the deepest way to secure the health of our planet is to reverse that subject object relationship between ourselves and our planet. And that is that feminine quality in us, which knows how to include and integrate everything and be with everything. So, our feminine capacity will allow us to remember that I am not on this planet, I am the planet. And anything I do to the planet, I do to myself, right? And so it's a very, very spiritual way of looking at this activism work for the climate. But I would say, as activists, don't go out there and create polarities and create us versus them and fight, because that stays at the level of us and them and polarity. If you can help everyone move to that next level of inclusion by realizing that you are just another me and I'm just another you and we are just another portion of this planet, I think we will create a whole different base for this climate movement.
Thank you. That's a very, very interesting point. I think especially now, because not only the environmental movement but also social movements tend to be very polarized, and the use of social media and everything really like makes this polarization even worse, right? Where people see what they want to see, so they only see their point of view and not the problem as a whole. So thank you so much for bringing that up. We're truly learning a lot from all this conversation. Now I would like to go back to Drisha, Summer, and Midat to hear their final words.
Thank you, Anna, and thank you, Miss Nilima. I think uh, the last point that you just mentioned makes a lot of uh, sense for me, because when I see combining climate science and the kind of work we are doing and all other people in the network, and also beyond the network, they are contributing, uh, need need to see this through this conscious sense that you just through this lens that you just provided us. uh, After that only we can actually achieve, and we can actually uh, do what we promise or we wish to do. And in fact, people who are not even looking at through that lens will also get a sense that this is going to impact us in a way, and we have to take the action now, and this will give them a direction to actually do it, to go in that direction. So I think this session was just amazing, and I have a new perspective of looking at things and the kind of work I'm doing and the way I'm doing it. So thank you so much. It was such a honor to be in this conversation to listen to you. And I'm sure that people who are going to follow the YouTube link and other links will feel the same way. And I'll definitely look for that 10 minutes video that you mentioned. In fact, I started looking for it so that I can go through it, and I'll put that link for everybody in the YouTube live streaming as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Drisha.
Anybody? Summer, would you like to say something?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I really appreciate you allowing me to be part of this conversation. I think it's very invaluable, and I'm excited for other people to get to see it as well. And one takeaway that I had was to be a conscious leader, you need to really take a step back and look at yourself and be centered. And that, of course, takes practice. And then you can, if something happens, instead of respond and reflect on your actions that you've done with leadership in the past. So I think all of that you mentioned was very invaluable, and I appreciate your words here. So thank you.
Thank you, Summer.
Thank you so much, Ms. Nilima, for the amazing program. And I would like to thank the Pope family for hosting it as well. Personally, I'm really so passionate about gender inclusiveness. Actually, to be specific, I've been handling sessions, empowerment sessions in rural setting, whereby we are empowering masses on the issues of gender-based violence. But then today, you have thrown light on something that I've actually probably been underestimating, the aspect of engaging both genders in order for us to attain the aspect of gender balance. I'm doing this from that question that I was given to ask you because I really like the question. One thing that I've taken from you is that while we are trying to reach out and concentrate on the females, we are more of making the men, okay, in society, I've also seen it with the different people I interact with. The men actually get to think we are letting the ladies come and take over their male dominance. So the only way we can more of make them realize that it's nothing like male or female dominance, but it's more of like we are trying to promote equity amongst both genders, or at least give it the various genders the platform they do deserve to express themselves. So, which means we have to engage them once we are busy promoting, empowering the women or the girls. We have to bring the males on board so they actually get to understand their role play in this. While we are talking to the men, the females have to be around. And at the end of it all, we just need to understand each other. The other aspect that you brought in was bringing up, promoting inclusiveness, whereby you want to see you through someone else. For example, personally, I'm really so passionate about youth empowerment. So while I'm busy advocating or working towards that, do I have an image I can look at and be like, oh my God, she's actually upcoming? So you made me realize that whatever I am doing, I must try to see that someone else is able to grasp concept and is built and is able to do the same to someone else. So in other words, you are encouraging us to have impact and continuity of the already good done work. Thank you so much, and it has really been amazing.
Thank you, Meda.
Thank you so much, Summer, Drisha, and Mida for these amazing reflections. And I'll pass it over to you, Dr. Ash.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank Nilima once again for this incredible experience. I just want to say that certainly through the pop movement, everything that we've sort of reflected on, gained, and captured to this conversation will be very, very important in everything we do. But I also want to say at an individual level, it's something that's hugely impactful and inspirational. So and again, like you said, in order to make a difference at a larger level, it really needs to start with us. So want to say once again that this has been incredible, and we're very excited to have this opportunity, and becoming more conscious leaders um, is so crucial as we work toward making this planet and this world a safer, more protected, equitable space for all of us. And I just want to say thank you once again, Nilima. If there's anything that you'd like to say as we close, we'd be very grateful to hear you. And also, if you'd like to share a few words about Shakti leadership, the website, and anything else, because we'll encourage everybody to utilize those resources, to look at more of your videos and practice the tools that you have out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Ash. I would just end by saying that let's remember, none of us are okay until all of us are okay. This is something we know through COVID for sure. And to know that the only win is a win-win-win, right? The only win is a win for all. That is the most smartest thing to aim for. Win-lose ends up being lose-lose eventually. So I would just ask us to remember that. And you can follow us on shaktileadership.com and find us on social media, on, on YouTube, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. You can find me in many places. We have a fellowship program where we create women change makers from all around the world, certified with University of San Diego. It's a 9-month program. I'm also launching a Udemy course next month. So you can do a self-study course, or you can gather in groups and do that course. It's like a book club with many wonderful anecdotes and animations and so on. So please join the movement and help us get to 100,000 Shakti leaders by 2030.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's absolutely fantastic. I know we have a lot of wonderful budding leaders, so I'm going to encourage everybody to please look at those resources, and these are very powerful tools. And thank you. You're absolutely right. We're only going to be okay if all of us are okay. And COVID has definitely been an important lesson in this process. And it's true as we see extreme weather patterns in so many places and so on. And so you're absolutely right. And so let's sort of work on ourselves and work together. And I just want to say thank you very much once again. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Anna, and I'm just going to say, Nilima, it's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again, Ms. Nilima, for being here and talking about these very important topics, and really having this discussion with all the youth leaders we have here. And thank you also to Summer, Mira, and Risha for being here with us today. It was truly an enriching experience, and I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did.
You're all amazing. I'm so grateful to be here with you today. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been so wonderful. We look forward to seeing you again soon, and thank you very much.
Always ready to join you. Bye now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.